My name is Tomáš Danicek, or Tomas for short, an international version. I'm normally tweeting over at Czech Footy, so I'm the only English-speaking Twitter account or X account in English, exclusively in English. And then sometimes I also babble in Czech on a Czech podcast for Football Club, formerly a magazine, now mostly a website. So I also do that, but of course for international audience, it's mostly just the Twitter.
Cool. So let's start here. How's this World Cup being anticipated by Czech Republic fans?
Well, of course, it's long overdue. I wouldn't even say that we've had many near misses in the past, actually, which is all the more embarrassing. Of course, we needed the expansion very much for it to happen. Then we needed the penalty shootouts for it to happen. So we are just lucky to be there. I don't think anyone expects too much. At the same time, I think the consensus, maybe even worldwide, would be that our group is one of the softer ones. So I don't think that we need to be like super pessimistic about our outlook. But yeah, super excited. Of course, the last time we were there, our chances were tarnished by Jan Koller injuring his hamstring very early on in the tournament, and just mentioning him and Karel Poborský and Tomáš Rosický, Pavel Nedvěd, all of them are long retired. So it's been a long time.
Is there any difference between how the fans are feeling about this one and how the media is covering it? Is there a kind of a market level or difference in anticipation between fans and media?
Well, I think there's not actually much of a difference. I think we are a country or a nation of quite pessimistic and like dark humor kind of people. So we like to also make fun of us. And I think the national team, throughout even this qualifying campaign, has given us plenty of reasons to also make fun of ourselves and like not taking the campaign itself too seriously. And I think so the media as well as fans have been very critical about the playing style. Of course, we have a very fresh, even if not young, but very freshly appointed coach who's got some ideas. Normally is quite a daring coach. So hopefully at least the football can ultimately be some sort of a high octane, fun stuff, because at this point it's just us chasing after the ball and not doing much of the actual football. So I think that would be enough for the media as well as the fans to stop being so, maybe at some points even overly critical. And myself, I've been at fault of that as well.
So I've been asking people to kind of put on a doctor's outfit, if you will, and kind of diagnose for me the state of their country's football. So would you say Czech football, both domestically and its ability to export players, is it in a healthy place or is it maybe not so healthy?
I think it's in a healthier place, especially when it comes to getting younger players out there. So I think recently, or even not so young, actually, recently we had quite major transfers, even out of clubs like Plzeň, like Pavel Schulz is now scoring very well for Lyon. Robin Hranáč is also finally making his mark at Hoffenheim. So all these transfers normally, 5 years ago, they wouldn't really happen and they wouldn't really be possible. It was only Slavia shipping these players like Souček and Soufal off to the Premier League. So now I guess the diversifying of the clubs who are actually able to sell, Baník Ostrava as well, currently fighting the relegation in quite an embarrassing fashion. So those clubs, just this fact is I think speaking a bit to the emancipation of the Czech football towards the outside world. I think also domestically we are seeing smaller clubs that are buying a bit more into the analytics, into a bit more like progressive brand of football. So that's also nice to see. A bit younger coaches also coming through. So I think actually this sort of a return to the World Cup stage does coincide with something of a progress domestically, but at the same time, and as you most likely notice in summer as well, like we still are a team mostly made out of hardworking bunch, physically very good like athletes, but there's always the complaint that we don't produce enough mercurial players who are actually like more skill and less or more finesse, less fitness, which somehow rhymes. And in our case, it's very much one over the other still.
So let's talk about qualifying then. So it was a difficult path. You wanted the last to qualify for the World Cup. How did it all go down? How did it work?
Yeah, it very much started off similarly to the previous campaign. So there was the one team that we looked at, and we immediately thought that's obviously a better team. It was Croatia, and then again, like I think that was one of the weakest groups that was there. So like we were quite lucky to not really have that obvious the team to rival us. It ended up, funnily enough, being, of course, Faroes, who we also very embarrassingly lost to, and that was, by the way, followed by the captain Tomáš Souček, sort of speaking out against the fans who were too negative. So there was a whole fallout. He even was stripped of the captaincy. He won't be the captain at the World Cup. So there was this whole drama. Of course, the changing the coach as well, the one who was appointed just before the Euros, then quite controversially got actually vote of the confidence for the World Cup qualifying. Didn't work out quite predictably. So we even finished the campaign with an interim coach, which I think is very unusual as well, because we waited for far too long to fire the previous coach. And now we are one of the few teams, I can imagine, if not the only one, actually going into the World Cup with consciously with a coach that actually hasn't coached much, but at least there's the playoffs that he needed to navigate, and he did navigate it. But yeah, exactly, like 2 penalty shootouts. It's quite unusual. That's why after we advanced, I tweeted that if it's actually possible to win the World Cup in penalty shootouts only, which seems to be the only discipline that we are actually sort of kings of at this moment.
So who's the coach? Kobek is the name. Where does he come from? Who is he? And what should we expect from his teams, if that can be known?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, he was before he got fired halfway through the fall, this past fall, this season from Plzeň. So he was by far the oldest coach in the league, over 70. But at the same time, that's not really to say that he's an old guy in every sense of the word, because he's actually bought into the data as well. Like he's actually quite he's quite demanding. He does have that energy, so it's not definitely someone who'll just sit down and watch his team play it out and just be happy that he's at the World Cup. He'll definitely take it seriously. And he was also, up until the very last minute, let's say, he was very successful, especially continentally, which I think does give us this sense of optimism. Of course, he first made the best result with Viktoria Plzeň in Conference League. Then he basically reached the same stage in Europa League the following spring. And he did so by, let's say, in sometimes, of course, preferring the pragmatism, especially on the road. He was the pragmatist. It was mostly defense first, but at the same time, at home, he also could have coached a team that was very adventurous, pressing quite up high, almost too adventurous on some attacking set pieces. Like the rest defense there was very very bad and suspected sometimes. So yeah, I think especially the international success he had on the club level with Viktoria Plzeň does fill someone with optimism, even though, of course, in the playoffs we didn't see much of progress. It was more of the same and more of the same bad stuff. But at the same time, of course, there's now more months to work with. There's a bit more calm environment for him to also work with, because everybody was on the edge and nervous ahead of the playoffs. So now that he succeeded with the very, very first thing, I think that sort of gives him also, cool of his mind. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to throw, this is a double-sided question. Fans of the Premier League, I'm sure, will know Souček and Koufal. What present moment are those two in specifically? And then who are some lesser-known players that you think on this stage at the World Cup will be able to play well?
Yeah, so Czech and Sofal, of course, they are the veterans of the team. They went to 2 Euros already with the team, and one of them formerly captain. The other one basically doesn't have a rival. He was the only right wing back who was even called up for the playoffs. So he's got utmost confidence. I would say they are the core players mostly on paper. Like performance wise, in fact, of course, Souček even started the semi-final on the bench, coming on more as an impact sub, pushing a bit higher instead of playing that sort of a misfit number 6 that he was often cast in the national team and maybe even in the Premier League. Um, so um, so yeah, I wouldn't say like we rely on them performance wise anymore. So far is almost a liability, mostly defensively actually. But they are, of course, they are experienced and they are strong voices in the dressing room. At some point in the recent past, almost too strong voices in the dressing room. With regards to the less known players, I would highlight, of course, I would assume or hope that Pavel Schulz at this point is not lesser known because of his exploits in Ligue 1. But of course, he's still one of the younger players. He did play at the Euros and did play quite well, but didn't really make a splash. So I think he's the one to watch because he was definitely the let's say the only actually properly performing player, especially in the final against Denmark when it comes to offense. And then maybe Lukáš Provod, another midfielder, mostly a bit deep lying, like central midfielder, maybe playing in double pivot. If we go that route, he's a player domestically playing his trade for Slavia, the likely champions and the reigning champions as well. So he's a very good, powerful sort of runner through the midfield. He can take a set piece, he can cross, pass, he can do it all, and he already showed it on this sort of a level at the last Euros, where he was most definitely, I think, our best player over the entire group stages, which of course didn't actually go well for us.
Are there any players who are maybe on the edge injury wise? I know there's the player whose name is escaping me. He's the goalie. He's on loan from Liverpool. Think he might be injured. Cerny, is he injured? Is he in the picture at all? If I have the name right.
Yeah, so the goalkeeper Jaroš, I think he might have a case to be a number 3, but he's seriously injured. I think he even needed to undergo a surgery, so he's definitely out of the picture. Czerny actually was a snap, more or less. He wasn't really injured. He just wasn't called up, along with Tomáš Čvančara, who you might know from Celtic, where he's also scored a couple of goals lately. So both of them were basically omitted, and the coach admitted very openly as such. They were omitted for sort of playing style or commitment. He wanted basically players who wear their hearts on the sleeves rather than the skillful mercurial players like Czerny. And with regards, I think the biggest fitness doubt for us at this point is Adam Hložek, who used to be a prodigal son of Sparta. He was playing in our top league at 16. Then he transferred to Germany, and now he's very slowly making his way back from a serious injury at Hoffenheim. So he might, if he does manage to get some minutes under his belt, he might actually get called up because he's quite a high-profile name for us. But at the same time, I think he's only accumulated 22 minutes the whole season, so it's really a doubt at this point.
All right, so this is something I noticed when looking just at the squad in general. And it's a question that I had. What are the pluses and minuses, in your opinion, of having such strong representation in the national team from one club? So it seems like there's a huge portion of the squad that's comprised from Slavia. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think we mostly see it as a good thing. Of course, by the way, you could even count Sofal and Souček. Both of them used to play for Slavia. They know a lot of these players, even playing firsthand, like Tomáš Holeš, one of the older ones at Slavia. Of course, he's still at Slavia as opposed to those two. I think it might create in the dressing room. It might create some conflicts, of course, like one of the rivals dominating over the other. But that's of course pure speculation. But all of these are sort of strong voices, as I mentioned. Playing wise, of course, it does create these like interesting right-sided, left-sided cliques. Like we might have a left center back who's playing for Sparta, then potentially even left wing back who plays for Sparta. With regards to Slavia, definitely like right center back might be Tomáš Holeš or Štěpán Chaloupek, together with Soufal, who they have some chemistry, especially with Holeš as well. So there are these, I would say, like mini teams or clusters of players who are aware of each other and they more or less share the same area of the pitch. So that's definitely good. But at the same time, in the past, especially, we don't know about this coach, especially since he's hailing from the third club in a row, which is the Viktoria Plzeň. So he might actually prefer a whole bunch of players because there are also always Plzeň players who are vying for these places. But in the past, it was actually quite a common practice that the national team coach would basically mirror the formation that Slavia or at some points even Sparta deploys, and basically just take not even the page out of the Sparta or Slavia coach's book, but pretty much the entire book or playbook, and just running away with it. And that normally didn't sit well with the national team because, of course, you can't just transfer this sort of a chemistry from all over the pitch, from club to national team level. It was more of a shortcut that some of these coaches did. So I hope that this particular coach actually looks past the affiliations and isn't afraid to drop some of these Slavia mainstays.
Purely selfish question here. Whenever I catch Slavia Prague in the Champions League or the Europa League, the team has a healthy number of Africans in it, West Africans mostly. And I'm curious, what do African players bring to Czech football that isn't there already? And is there ever a push to nationalize them and bring them into the fold of the national team, or is that something that's not really considered?
I don't think we've ever had an African actually staying for long enough to be even considered. I'm not even sure what's the rule. I think the minimum would be 5 years, and that's already with our visa policy. That's also a bit tough because there's actually instances of players missing even half a dozen of games because of visa issues. They can't, renew them and that sort of stuff. So it's a bit tricky in terms of. So I think the only naturalization case I can recall was actually of a Brazilian when there was a push for Everton, who used to play for Baník Ostrava, also Slavia, and now I think is still in Egypt. But that also was more or less, I guess, a wish of the journalist rather than actual consideration. So that's that wasn't ever really considered. But with regards to what they bring, I think, and also actually like the directors and the directors of transfers, they often sort of course, rely on the stereotypes. So they normally see Africans as those who are, first of all, they are more accustomed to our physicality. We always say that like Czech league is very physical, very fitness oriented, and of course Africans are viewed as those strong men. So that's more of the stereotype based view that I don't often adhere to. But then they also bring the element of unpredictability. They actually sometimes or often they are actually those who are sort of the technical elements of the teams rather than those that actually only run, which sometimes could be the Czech players in those teams. So yeah, I think it's just that sort of a mixture, and then of course sometimes taking it through Latvia and these leagues where we can actually reach towards. So they actually, I think financially they are also sort of within our reach, so that we can pay them, or especially the lesser clubs in the Czech top flight can actually reach them financially. So that's also, I guess, another, in a way, motivation or other reason why they are maybe there rather than the Scandinavian players, for example, which seems to be a dream of many clubs, but ultimately it's mostly just Sparta and Slavia who can actually afford to lure them to their club.
Cool. 3 more questions. What is Czech Republic's floor and what is their ceiling? In other words, how bad can they be? How good can they be? And is there pressure to succeed? However, pressure is defined. However, success is defined, rather.
Yeah, I think the floor for us is very, very low. I think we showed it in 2024 at the Euros, where we outdid ourselves in against Georgia, especially. So I think definitely the floor could be around 1 point or 0 points. I think the ceiling at the same time might be between 4 and 6 points in the group. But with this format, I think definitely the ceiling for us is to progress and to potentially even navigate the first knockout stage. Generally, I think the pressure will be for this to not be a winless tournament. So looking at those three opponents, each of them has their limitations. South Korea seem to be undergoing something of a crisis in terms of their preparation. So like there's definitely pressure on the Czech team to somehow deliver, to at least take advantage of maybe even a team that's in more of a disarray than ourselves. So yeah, I think a winless tournament is unacceptable. But if we do win one game, I think um, most of the whatever follows or whatever precedes it can be forgiven. Yeah.
Cool. Who's your pick to win the World Cup?
Oh, yeah, I guess
You can give me favorites. You can give me like a list of favorites. I don't want to nail you down to one team, so you can have like a top three if you want.
Well, I don't really have a favorite, but also don't really have a list. I think everybody will be, of course, looking at Spain, having won the Euros. Argentina, I think, would do better than Brazil. That's, I guess, my call, but I'm not sure if they are going all the way. I don't really trust France this time around, but that's the opposite of answering who's the favorite to win. So yeah, I guess I'd have to go with Spain.
Okay. Last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Czech Republic, Czech football that you find particularly fun, interesting, that you think people should know or might want to know?
Oh, I wish I could prepare for this one in advance.
This one is always the surprise question, just because all the other questions are kind of basic. So this is the one that makes people think.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, of course, watch out for Czechs in pubs. As the common knowledge knows, we are winning most of the beer pongs and beer competitions. But also, I guess, like I'm not even sure actually if this is a worldwide trend, but we have this way of supporting where we basically shout that whoever is not Czech is not jumping. So we are jumping, and that's our support. I don't know if that's international or Czech, but I think we are bringing that to the stands. And someone might consider it fun, even though for me it's it's not necessarily. But yeah, that's all I can think of on the spot. But I'm sure once I hang up, there'll be a ton more things that I think of.
That's how it happens. Anyway, Thomas, I thank you for taking the. People find you again and your podcast.
Yeah, at Czech Footy on X, mostly just live tweeting national team games and then producing a series of previews. If you're into the Czech League, then those are the most in-depth previews in English that you can find on the internet. Yeah.
I thank you for taking the time, bro. Really appreciate it.
Cheers for inviting me.
Hi, yeah, my name's Steve, and I'm a sports writer based in South Korea, doing lots of freelance work, mainly on the radio at the moment. And I think my cat also wants to introduce himself, maybe. You can follow me on at K-League Football on Twitter, or X as it seems to be called now. And yeah, I've been covering the Korean national team for a long time. I actually worked for the KFA on one of their committees for the previous World Cup and the 4 years running up to that. So I have a lot of background knowledge about what was going on at that time.
Cool. All right. So, how would you say this World Cup is being covered by South Korean media specifically?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. There's everybody here seems so pessimistic and like, yeah, it's almost as if the World Cup's not even happening at all. To be honest, it seems like the expectations are rock bottom. Yeah, there's not much excitement about the national team, and it hasn't been for a while. So just to kind of bring it up to date, for the previous World Cup in Qatar, before that, there was a lot of positivity around the national team. As Paulo Bento was in charge for that, Portuguese manager, and they had like Team Bento kind of scarves and things like this. All the games were sold out. It was really, really upbeat. And then at the end of that World Cup, they decided, we've had this manager for 4 years, had this head coach for 4 years. It's time for a change. From my perspective, national team managers, because they see the players so much less, 4 years is really like 1 year, in my opinion. But they didn't see it that way. They see it like 4 years, they'll have a change. Couldn't agree a new contract with him, decided to get somebody new. And that's when things started to go wrong. I'm sure you'll be well aware of the reputation Jurgen Klinsmann has. So in the US, he's not very popular. But then since then, he'd not done any coaching at all, apart from like 10 games at Hertha Berlin for like 4 or 5 years, and became the national team manager in Korea. That spell was horrendous. And they lost to Jordan in the Asian Cup, and there were lots of controversies. There's like a big thing about how he wanted to live in California rather than live in Korea, and so Koreans were kind of disrespected by that.
Interesting.
There was a fight between Korea's 2-star players, Son Heung-min and Lee Gang-in, right before the semi-final of the Asian Cup, which led to, I think it was Son Heung-min like spraining his hand and having to have a cast on his hand and stuff. And so that went terribly. So they thought, after this, we wanted to have this guy for 4 years to go all the way for the USA World Cup. He knows the USA. He lives in the USA. He'll be the perfect manager for the World Cup in the USA. But after that, that's like about a year into his contract, they had to sack him. Cost them a huge amount of money. I think they haven't said it out loud, but everybody suspects that they blew their entire budget for head coaches for 4 years on him. So they need to get somebody else in, and they seem to be going for the cheap option. And they thought, I don't know, we'll copy Spain. Spain seem to be doing well by getting their under-23 coach and just promoting their under-23 coach. So they kind of gave the under-23 coach an interim spell, but then he had a disastrous performance in the under-23 Asian Cup and lost to Indonesia. And so everybody's like, he definitely can't be the national team manager. He's not qualified. And then eventually they went for the current manager, Hong Mong-ba, who we'll talk about a bit more later, I'm sure. But because of all of that going on, it's very underwhelming. There's very low expectations for Korea for this World Cup.
If I could maybe delineate between media and just the general public. So obviously the people who are paying attention, yourself and others, obviously there's like a bit of context that would make people very skeptical. But does that penetrate to the match-watching, footballing public?
Absolutely. Yeah. So before the 2022 World Cup, I've actually just checked my notes. In June 2022, Korea played Brazil. It sold out within like a minute, as games against Brazil normally do. When they played against Brazil in October 2025, so is that like 6 months ago or so, the game didn't sell out. Against Brazil in the national team stadium, it didn't sell out. There was a game later on in that international window against Paraguay, which got 20-something thousand fans. It got less fans than FC Seoul normally get for their home games in that stadium. So, the mood among the public is absolutely the same as the mood of the media. There's very little appetite. It's very ironic, actually. the K League has struggled for years and years and years, and has suddenly become really popular in the last season and a half. I'd say maybe 2 seasons. But the national team was always really, really popular, and it's completely fallen off a cliff in terms of popularity.
So that sets up the next question, which is I'm going to make you a doctor, so Dr. Price, and I want you to maybe diagnose the condition of South Korean football. Is it in a healthy place? Is it in a bad place? And maybe you could split it up into domestically and then maybe foreign exports as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of a lot of kind of long-term stuff, it seems to be going in the right direction. I mean, as I just said, like, the K League's got really popular. They seem to have figured out how to sign foreign players properly, and so there seems to be less duds, I feel, at the moment, in that regard as well. It's getting great attendances, a bit more money coming in, so it's hopefully it will look like the J League, where they get really great attendances every week over there in Japan. They actually just opened a new national team football center this week, which they've been working on in terms of like the long-term future. It's like super advanced. They use the same architects as the Ajax did or something, from what I read. So it's one of the most advanced in the region, at least, maybe not the world. And like a lot of the long-term kind of foundations are okay, but the current squads on the national team level, and that also comes to Koreans playing abroad, it seems to have gone downhill a bit since the last World Cup, in my opinion. So the current squad I felt was really at its peak at that time in 2022 in terms of all the players. They all had some great seasons. Kim Min-jae was in the Ballon d'Or list around that kind of time. Son Heung-min had an incredible time at Spurs, and Lee Gang-in looked like he was going to be £100 million player. But then since then, stuff's not really worked out. The team's kind of aged. There's not been really any new guys coming through. Well, there should be. There should be somebody who's like 22, 23, who everybody thinks is going to be the next Son Heung-min or something like that, right? But there's nothing like that, which really seems to be happening. Closest would be Yang Min-hok, and he's only 19, so he's doing very well for somebody who's 19. But everybody thought he would be doing better than he is, and he's coming at Coventry City on loan from Spurs, but he just only played 3 games for them in the second half of the season so far. And before that, he played maybe 12 games or something like that for Portsmouth in the first half of the season. So he's not really played much kind of football either. So you're wondering, is he actually going to become that superstar or not? The general players abroad have not really, like, stuff's not really working out for them. And nobody's really hitting their expectations or like potential, I'd say.
So with all that kind of, it seems like doom and gloom, I'll be honest. But you are at a World Cup. They did qualify. So how did the qualification go? And what's been their form since qualification?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like qualification finished like a couple of weeks ago for some countries. But South Korea's qualification seems so long ago. It's hard to remember. But actually, I have to look at my notes to try and find out. Yeah, back in June 2025, so it's almost a year ago that they qualified. And to be honest, they qualified before that. It took it until that long for it to be mathematical. They cruised through qualification. It was, because there's more teams in the World Cup this time from Asia. It was very easy. So qualification was never in doubt, and there wasn't much fanfare over the qualification. It was just happening. It was just games you've got to play almost. So qualification was fine. They actually didn't lose a match in qualification, which is quite hard to believe when you look at some of the performances, because there's some very turgid ones. I'll just give you an example. They played against Palestine and drew with them twice. And to give a level of the Palestine team, one of the guys who played against Son Heung-min and all those guys at the Seoul World Cup Stadium in that draw played Sunday League football with me last week. So it's not a great team. You shouldn't be drawing that game. So yeah, even though they didn't lose a game in qualification, the kind of fans' opinions even then were very much this manager's not good enough. It's like we're winning these games, but we're going to struggle when we play some decent opposition.
So I'll take it that fans aren't happy with this manager, but maybe for people who aren't aware of how this particular Korean team wants to play, what would you say are some hallmarks of his style of play and what he's trying to get his team to do?
Well, so he actually was the manager in the past for the 2014 World Cup. Okay. So before that, he won bronze medal at the Olympics in 2012, which is the last kind of big medal that Korea have won in a tournament. That was a big achievement, and also for Korea, that means you don't have to do military service if you get an Olympic medal. So for those players, it was huge for their careers, and it meant that you can join a club like in the Premier League, and they'll be happy to sign you because they know that you're not going to have to disappear for a year in your middle of your contract to do military service or something. So at that time, he was seen as like he was already a national hero. He was the captain for the 2002 World Cup team, but he was seen as like this guy's going to be the national team manager and take us to a new golden age. And it didn't work out at all in that World Cup. Korea got 1 point, finished bottom of the group. And so I think that's a lot on people's minds when it comes to Hong, because they're kind of thinking it's going to be the same as then. But of course, people learn. He's been learning all these tactics since then. He's won the K-League a few times since then. So managed like teams in China and stuff like that. So you think he's more experienced. He's coming into this World Cup with experience, and a lot of criticism of Shin Tae-yong, who was the manager for the 2018 World Cup, was that his lack of experience really was seen in the dressing room. The players could feel his nervousness on the big stage, and that's not going to be the case with Hong Yong-bo because he's done it before, both as a player in 2002 and he's been at the World Cup as a head coach. So that's really going to help. And in terms of tactics, he was experimenting with a back three in the last friendlies, and it didn't go well at all. So I'm going to guess that we're going to go back to the back four. That seems to be what he was implying with his comments in the week. It seemed okay in attack, but I mean, it's more a case of the team in general. Like the defense is really weak, apart from Kim Min-jae, obviously, like the other defenders are not at the level. Whereas if you look at, say, Sweden or like one of the lower European teams in the World Cup, like all of their defenders are like at least lower Premier League level or like upper Championship kind of level, and they're like gonna be able to defend properly and like not make a mistake. But you feel like there's a mistake in all of these defenders, and that's a big worry.
All right. So you've mentioned Son a few times, you've mentioned Kim a few times. So I'm curious as to how you would project their form. Obviously, Heung-min Son is no longer with Spurs. He's gone on his kind of, I don't know, long in the tooth teams, and he's been in MLS, I think, and other places. Kim Min-jae is obviously one of the better defenders in the Bundesliga. So how are they, and what should be expected from the star names? And then who maybe from the supporting cast are you thinking maybe they could have a good tournament?
Yeah, so Sonny is an interesting one because, there's a lot of Korean media trying to, like, they were probably overly positive during his absolute peak, but they seem to have turned on him a little bit, and kind of some people are even suggesting he's too old. I don't see it that way at all. I think he's still Korea's best player without a doubt, and he's the guy who's going to give you that chance to win games. So he actually, I think he scored last night, and he kind of did a celebration to try and like mock the media who are criticizing his age and stuff and saying I've still got it. He got like 4 assists at the weekend in the MLS, so it's hard to get 4 assists at any level. I felt like he personally, it seems a bit strange that he went to MLS. I thought he could have still been playing in the Premier League this season, definitely Tottenham would be better if they had him in their team this season. And I feel like his so-called decline at Tottenham wasn't his fault. It was more the club were useless this season and last season when he was still there. He was played in a bit of a weird position at Tottenham that season. And so his decline at Tottenham wasn't his fault. And if he had have been now under a new manager or joined another club of that level, I think he could still perform. So I thought it was a bit odd that he moved to MLS. I think it's maybe he's thinking a bit more down the line in like a few years' time, or maybe he wants to be the big fish. Like he at one point was Tottenham's best player, one of the best players in the Premier League. Maybe he likes to be that big guy and wants to do that, and that's why he went to the MLS, where he's like him and Messi are like the top two from my perspective over there. And if he were in the Premier League, he wouldn't be the top two players in the Premier League. He'd still be a very good player, and most clubs would be very happy to have him and have him as one of their starting 11, even now. But maybe that's why he went there. So I think he's still got everything there. He's got a point to prove. People are talking now about angry Son. Like, Son, he's such a nice guy and he's always like happy and everything in the media. But now he's angry, and like we want to see angry Son, and we want to see him like kind of that point to prove. And when he's got a point to prove, he's even better. He's like scoring goals just to prove a point to everybody that he's still got it. So for me, I think he's definitely still the player in South Korea's team to look out for. The one that everybody was kind of hoping would be the next guy was Lee Gang-in. It really looked like it at the last World Cup. He got a great assist. He was the guy with a point to prove because he was benched for a lot of it. And when he came on against Ghana, he got like just smashed into a guy, tackled the ball, whipped in a cross, got an assist, got cleared straight back in the game, all within like a minute or so of coming on. So he's a player when there's a point to prove can look really good. But unfortunately for Lee Gang-in, like he's at PSG and he's an attacking player, so he's stuck behind like their three world-class Ballon d'Or winning attacking players. He's not getting the minutes that he needs. I was hoping he would have moved in the summer, but he didn't. He stayed at PSG, and I think he's got even less minutes this year than last year, so it's a bit of a problem there. Because he should be the next guy to be like Korea's next top player.
And Kim Min-jae?
Yeah, so it's strange. Like Bayern Munich fans don't seem to like him. Yeah, he seems to be. He had that great season at Napoli, and he's doing okay at Bayern, but defending is all about defensive partnerships, and so if the players around him like aren't as good, like you're asking him to do a lot, and that's kind of the problem with the Korean national team. If they had like two Kim Min-jaes, they'll do extremely well in the World Cup, but they only have one.
So I'm going to ask you to project for me. So you're in a group, I say you, but South Korea are in a group with Mexico, South Africa, and Czechia. What's their floor and what's their ceiling?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the FIFA rankings, Korea are the second highest ranked in that group. So based on that, you'd expect them to go through, right? Like they played Mexico not that long ago. They drew against them in Mexico, which is where they'd have to play them, I think. Or maybe it was in the USA, but it was over in that part of the world. And so let's say they go through. Look at who they could get in the next round. It'll be, if they came second in the group, it'd be the runners-up of Group B, who wouldn't be the hardest team in the world. So maybe they get through that round as well. So there's a lot of negativity in the South Korean press, but when you look at their fixtures, and if you actually look at stuff like maybe they could go to the second knockout round, and even that one, I think if they came second in the group, I worked out it'll be maybe Netherlands or Japan. So it's not Brazil or it's not Spain or it's not England. It's it's not impossible for them to have a good run if they get stuff going. So it's it's kind of a hard one to predict.
So are you feeling strong round of 16 vibes?
Yeah, I don't get why people are being so fatalistic about it. When you look at the teams they're playing, and the teams which they've got results against teams of that level, apart from the last international break, which I think was kind of partly because the manager was experimenting, and partly Korea were actually a little bit unlucky. Like they lost 4-0 to Korea, but actually they hit the woodwork 4 times in that game. It wasn't a 4-0 4-0. It was a bit closer than that. So I feel like they could surprise Korean fans, but and show that these low expectations, I think they'll do better than that. But yeah, I don't know how far they'll get. I think they could probably get through the group stage, I'd say, and then the knockout rounds. Who knows? Who knows in the knockout round?
Fair. So who's your pick to win the World Cup? I'm gonna ask everybody this one. So or your picks. I'm not gonna make people pick one team, but who's your pick?
Okay. If Harry Kane can stay fit,
oh boy,
I reckon England could do it. That's with that one caveat that Harry Kane stays fit. England have sorted out their problems that they had in the last World Cup. I think they've sorted out their midfield. They've got something that works there. And I think the manager's kind of totally clued on about what is needed to do well in the tournament. And he's not sentimental or anything like that about certain players. So, yeah, I think the thing is because it's a knockout almost all the way through because of that extra round, it makes it so much harder to predict because it only takes one bad game from anybody and then you lose on penalties and you're out. So I think it's going to be the most unpredictable World Cup. I definitely wouldn't be betting on anybody because there's that unpredictability. But if I had to say one team, then assuming Harry Kane stays fit, I'll say England.
All right. So last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about South Korea that you think is particularly interesting that people should know or might want to know?
Yeah, I think I jumped into a lot of the questions and stuff anyway. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's because of the time difference, these games are going to be happening in the middle of the morning and stuff, so that's going to be a bit strange. But yeah, there's a lot of Korean Americans, so they're going to have great support at all of their games. So that'll be good for them, I think. I'd say just the Guardian wrote an article with the power rankings, and it had Korea as 40th, and complete no hopers. I think they're better than that. I think they, as I said, could get to the knockout rounds, and then who knows what's going to happen.
Cool, yeah. Steve. This has been really good. I thank you for taking the time. Where can people follow you again?
Yeah, so it's at K-League Football on Twitter. Feel free to follow me, and I'm sure they can find my link on your link when you post this as well.
Definitely. All right, Steve, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, and enjoy talking to the other 31 people, I guess.